$2,000 as of right now when it comes to Quant is around a 22x from here. And what do I think about that, even though nothing I say is financial advice? Well, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf, I think there could be two ways to view it right here. First of all, because my intention is to dollar cost average, being around a 22x from here, I'm not necessarily going to complain about that because, in theory, if let's say something is low, maybe the more room it has to grow. Does not mean that it will do that, but then that's just kind of this concept that I'm thinking about. However, at the same time as well, if I like Quant at a higher price, let's say, right? And then suddenly I see it right now, 2000 being around 22x from here, would I suddenly not like it? My point of view is this: if I like this t-shirt at $10, why would I suddenly not like it if it's at $5? That's my point of view. It's like, imagine if for whatever reason, Bitcoin went to 50,000, and let's say I liked it at 100,000, why would I suddenly not like it if it's at 50,000 if, let's say, nothing bad fundamentally happened to it? So in terms of dollar cost averaging, low prices temporarily, it's not something I would necessarily complain about because, again, if I'm wanting to dollar cost average, I don't know why I'd complain about that. Now, I don't want low prices forever, by the way, because why would I want that? But then temporarily, if let's say maybe that is the case, I wouldn't find that too disappointing. Now, the second aspect of that is this: because the price is going down, sometimes, again, I see my portfolio going down, it's not necessarily such a good feeling. But then if I'm able to dollar cost average and let's say lower down that average cost, again, I don't know why I'd complain about that. Now, because I never went all in, what I've been doing is just dollar cost averaging and just acquiring incremental amounts over an extended period of time. And by doing that, if let's say the price does go lower, it's not like I'm necessarily, oh wow, what's going to happen? I'll just try to dollar cost average even more. That's just basically my point of view. And look, I have no control over what happens in the market. I can't control Quant in any way. But then at the same time, when I take a look at the fundamentals, when I take a look at the market cap needed to reach 2,000, which would be around 24 billion considering current circulating supply, it's just nothing that would seem too ridiculous to me. Maybe if, let's say, there's an altcoin season. If there's no altcoin season, that's a different case. But if there was one, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, in my previous videos, I've talked about how usually altcoins, typically as a worst case scenario, they usually peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event, or should I say around a year and a half. So if we take 18 months from April of 2024, which was when actually the last Bitcoin halving event happened, and then we add an additional 18 months on top of that, that would actually mean October this year. Granted, we're already in October right now, and soon it's going to be November. Totally aware of that. And sometimes you like to say, well, why didn't it happen in, October? Why was there an altcoin season? Well, I think it's not always going to be the same each cycle. And I've actually talked about that as well in my previous videos. It could happen later. And clearly, we haven't seen the start of it during the cycle within this month. And I don't think I've seen an altcoin season ever actually during the cycle. But then if, let's say, November went along, December, January, February, March, it could maybe be different. Who knows? Because, for instance, a lot of people thought that Bitcoin was never going to reach over $100,000 during the cycle, and it clearly did. And that is even the case right now, right? Despite the pullback slightly in the grand scheme of things. So my point of view is that, of course, Quant is not Bitcoin, even though the maximum supply is actually lower than Bitcoin, which is actually hypothetically true because the maximum supply is around 14.8 million, whereas Bitcoin is 21 million. But besides that point, that's tomato, right? It's not really comparable, in a apples to oranges sort of way. But then at the same time, I just want to mention that real quick. But again, I'm not saying Quant is going to be more popular than Bitcoin. I'm not saying it's going to do what Bitcoin did. I'm not saying that. But then in terms of the use case, I just find it very dynamic because if we take a look at the Quant network, which is made up of the Overledger OS and the Overledger network, but I'm just going to kind of skip through the Overledger network real quick because it is made up of the Overledger OS users, and on there they can share their data, their apps, their resources, and monetize them. So that's just kind of the basic gist of it. However, I think the real thing that is more interesting and more cool is the Overledger OS, where it allows something called a multi-chain application to be built. An application that is built on top of multiple blockchains instead of just one, which I think is a pretty amazing game-changing type of thing because, let's say I'm a developer, I don't have to be stuck building on only just one blockchain anymore. That's amazing. Now, people like to say, if it's so revolutionary, why isn't there so many, of these multi-chain applications? Well, in my perspective, adoption like that, in some cases, not in every single case, it could take some time. And we're kind of seeing that a little bit because multi-chain applications are just not that popular, in my opinion, in the grand scheme of things. I just think it's revolutionary nonetheless. And also on top of that, what I like about Quant is that the amount of holders seem to be holding pretty strong. The exchange listings are pretty good, in my opinion. It's not the best, but I think it's still pretty amazing. And also on top of that, I like where it seems to be heading fundamentally. It doesn't seem like anything bad fundamentally happened to it other than the price going down. So some people like to say, okay, does that mean the fundamentals became bad if the price went down? In some cases, maybe, depending on the project, but in this case, I just don't see it. I just don't know what bad thing happened to it. I still think it's very fundamentally sound. I would say, I still think it's pretty good. And also on top of that, I still like the project. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to do good. And whenever exactly an altcoin season happens, that is clearly beyond my control. The only thing I can do is just stay patient, hold, and I just wait. And that's pretty much about it. Even if, let's say, I pulled up a price chart, how would I know when the exact moment an altcoin season maybe even starts? Like how? Like the market's not going to care about that. First of all, let's say I drew a falling wedge pattern. Do you think the market's going to pay attention to that? I highly doubt it. I don't think at all, actually. And some of my friends out there, they draw, falling wedge pattern, a random triangle in a price chart. They say, oh, this is going to happen at this time, and then it doesn't, and then they just keep adjusting it. Then what's the point? And then let's say it doesn't happen again, and they just keep adjusting it and adjusting it. Now, clearly at that point, I'm just drawing, right? But then why would I do that? If I just take a look at the price chart of Quant specifically, I didn't think about anything else, just the price chart, I would clearly rather believe in Shiba Inu, probably. This is my perspective, just because if I'm only taking a look at the price chart. But then, that's not all I'm looking at. I'm taking a look at the fundamentals. I'm taking a look at the Quant network, the Overledger OS, for instance, multi-chain applications. I don't see that when it comes to Shiba Inu. You know what I mean? I don't see any of those type of revolutionary features. Sure, there's Shibarium. It's basically a layer 2. And sure, Shiba Inu has went a long way. It's done very well, historically speaking. But let's consider Shibarium, a layer 2 again, and then we compare that to the Overledger OS, let's say. I mean, come on, right? But then the price charts don't say that, though, right? The price charts are not going to make me take a look at something like that, because how can I? So then at the same time, I just take a look at the fundamentals. I'd rather just stay patient and prepare for a moment in which it does something, as opposed to trying to find the perfect time, if that makes sense. I'm just waiting, holding, and staying patient, and that's literally about it. I get it, the price isn't doing the best as of right now, but I'm still staying patient and just waiting. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'd greatly appreciate it, and I want to say thank you for watching. I hope you all have a nice day. It's Willie the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.